Lok Sabha passes landmark GST bill. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley assures the opposition that government will compensate loss of revenue to every state. Markets on a free fall. Sensex nosedives more than 700 points below the psychological 27,000 levels. Nifty tanks over 200 points. And real estate will refer to a 21-member select committee of Rajya Sabha panel to submit report by last day of the first week of monsoon session. Well, hello and welcome to Business Wrap. I'm Sidhant Sibal, and let's take a look at the major story of the day and all the action from the Dalal Street. The Sensex and Nifty came under heavy selling pressure in absence of any positive trigger today amid sustained capital outflows by the foreign funds. The BSE Sensex closed 723 points or 2.63% lower. The NSE Nifty too fell 2.74% to 8,097 levels. And here's a compact report on what happened on the markets today.
As a worldwide sell-off in sovereign bonds deepened, the key equity benchmark indices in India slumped. The BSE Sensex and Nifty fell nearly 3% on Wednesday to their lowest close so far this year on continued offloading by foreign investors amid retrospective tax worries. Sensex nosedived by 723 points to end at 26,717, while Nifty tanked by 228 points to close at 8,097. The Sensex also fell below the psychological level of 27,000. Top losers on the charts were led by BHAIL, ICICI Bank, Larsen & Toubro, Maruti Suzuki and NTPC, which were down by between 4 and 6%. However, there was only one gainer on the charts, which was Bharti Airtel, and it was up about almost 1%. All the 12 sectoral indices on BSE edged lower. There were more than 3 losers against every gainer on BSE. Banking, capital goods and power generation stocks led the decline on the domestic bourses. The market breadth indicating the overall health of the market was quite weak. The worldwide sell-off in government bonds deepened on Wednesday. Germany's 10-year yield hit a 2015 high at just under 0.6%. The yield has more than tripled in a week and has risen tenfold in just 3 weeks, erasing all the gains made this year. Benchmark 10-year yields on Spanish, Italian and UK government bonds also hit year highs. Yields on Indian sovereign bonds also edged higher and the rupee weakened against the dollar. Business Desk, DD News.
Well, moving on to global market action, Asian stocks edged lower today, mirroring overnight sell-off in the US stocks as investors were spooked by a vicious sell-off in sovereign bonds globally. Key indices in China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan and South Korea shed by between 0.02% to 1.62%. Indonesia's Jakarta Composite rose 0.2%. Japanese markets are closed for holiday from Monday till Wednesday. In European markets, well, the European stocks edged higher today. Key indices in France, Germany and UK were up by between 0.4% to 0.74%. Well, in a big boost to government's reform agenda, the Goods and Services Tax Constitutional Amendment Bill has been passed in the Lok Sabha with an overwhelming majority. 352 voted in favour of the GST bill and 37 members voted against the bill. Congress staged a walkout during the vote. All amendments moved by the opposition were defeated.
And by majority of not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting, the bill as amended is passed by the requisite majority in accordance with the provisions of Article 368 of the Constitution.
Well, earlier in the day, Lok Sabha, during discussion, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley said that no state will be losing revenue after the rollout of GST.
The interest of the state of Tamil Nadu is foremost as far as we are also concerned, because Tamil Nadu is, by any standard, economically a developed state. There are sections it's trying to do. And therefore, Tamil Nadu in any way should suffer from a loss of revenue is something that is not acceptable even as far as the centre is concerned. The various schemes that we have made under this Act and the provisions that we have made with regard to the amount itself is going to benefit Tamil Nadu, and I can assure the members of Tamil Nadu that in case if this entire compensation package that we have worked out lets any state doubt, we'll be willing to look at it again. There is no difficulty at all, because every state's revenues have to increase, they should not go down. That is something which the central government would always be committed to.
Well, the finance minister added that GST will reduce prices in the long run and boost economic growth.
That there would be no tax on tax. Today, if on raw material a tax is paid, thereafter excise duty is paid, thereafter when the goods enter a particular state, some entry taxes are paid, then VAT is paid, different layers of taxation are paid, and you don't get necessarily a set-off for the taxes already paid. And therefore there is a regime of tax on tax which makes the goods per se costlier. And therefore the effort has been of the consistent exercise which has gone on from 2003 onwards. How do we come to a system which will bring the prices down in the long run? It may bring inflation slightly down, and economists estimate that it has the potential to give a boost to India's GDP itself. It also helps in empowering the states, because the kitty of the states itself would increase.
Well, on the opposition demand to send a bill to the panel, Jaitley said that GST bill is not a dancing instrument which will go jumping from one standing committee to another standing committee.
States were insistent that petroleum and alcohol be kept out since it's a major source of state revenues. You kept alcohol out, I have also kept alcohol out, that's potable alcohol. Potable alcohol is a state subject, industrial alcohol is a central subject. That situation remains. Now, as far as petroleum is concerned, we came to an arrangement with the states. Petroleum will be part of the amendment, but no tax would be imposed unless the GST Council, where there is 2/3 majority of the states, agree to it. So as and they may agree after umpteen number of years or 10 years or not agree at all, that's for the states to decide. We'll keep that status quo. Now you are saying send it to the standing committee, but Mr. Moile's standing committee has already expressed a view on it. The empowered committee has already expressed a view on it.
The Goods and Services Bill provides for the rollout of single goods and services tax across the country. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has said that it's a win-win situation for all stakeholders. He has also said that the centre has been working towards addressing concerns of all the states for rolling out the GST.
Goods and Services Tax (GST) will be levied both on goods and services. GST will convert the country into a unified market, replacing most indirect taxes with one tax. It would have a dual structure, a central component to be levied and collected by the centre, a state component administered by states. At the central level, it will subsume central excise duty, service tax and additional customs duties. At the state level, it will include value-added tax, entertainment tax, luxury tax, lottery taxes and electricity duty. Central Sales Tax (CST) will be completely phased out. Entry tax or octroi would be subsumed from the start. Petroleum products will continue for a few years. State taxes on alcohol and tobacco will remain. Rate for GST is proposed to be 26.88%, 12.77% for central share and 13.91% for state share respectively. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley had convened several meetings with state finance ministers to create a consensus and gather suggestions from the states. After the last meeting in this series, a broad consensus was reached between the centre and the states in favour of the GST, after which Arun Jaitley expressed optimism over the rollout of GST from April 1st, 2016. Calculations suggest that the implementation of the GST regime would increase India's GDP by 1 to 2%. Business Bureau, DD News.
And to discuss GST, we have with us Jayanta Roy Chaudhary, senior journalist. Welcome to Doordarshan News. This massive reform agenda, it got a boost today in the parliament when it was passed in the Lok Sabha. How do you think that it will change the tax structure in the country, and how big is this measure? It has been called as the biggest reform measure when it comes to taxation since 1947. So what do you think? How big is the measure?
Well, it is a big measure. It is indeed a big measure. The point is that this constitutional amendment, which has yet to be passed by the Rajya Sabha, will be just an enabling amendment. It does not bring in the GST per se. The GST will be brought in once the GST Council has decided on the rates. The rate is not going to be 27.33 or whatever was being shown on TV. It has to be much, much lower. That is the rate which has been sought by the empowered committee of states, finance ministers. They wanted some of them want, not all of them, some of them wanted a revenue neutral rate, a rate which equals all the taxes that are placed on any good. There's a number of taxes which are imposed: VAT, excise, octroi, entry tax, number of other taxes are there, sometimes luxury tax, etc., etc. So all that comes up to something like 27-28%. Now that is what they wanted. Now at that tax you kill industry. You don't really that's not a tax reform, that's a retrograde measure, frankly speaking. Because right now that tax is being levied only on manufactured goods. Services tax used to be 12%, this budget it has become 14%. So if you increase service tax from 14 to 28, even if it is VATable against some good which is being produced, even then it's a huge, huge increase, and no one will be willing to pay that.
So what in your sense should be this GST tax rate?
Globally, the GST is 16.4%, and I think that is something that is the benchmark which the government wants to, take into account. Part of the finance minister's speech actually focused on that. He said that there was a news leak, which is not from the government, which said that we are going to focus on a revenue neutral rate of 28%. That is not so. And he quoted another study which said that the rate should be something like 18%.
That's according to the Finance Commission also.
That is the Finance Commission study which he quoted, which he said should be about 18%. Now globally it is 16.4. In a Southeast Asian region, it is actually as low as 8.5, an average of 8.5. Now, when I am talking about the GST rate, I am talking about the median or average rate, not all the rate ranges. There would be some goods which will be taxed at 0%, which are absolute necessities like life-saving medicines. There will be some goods which are basic necessities, supposing something like soap, which would be taxed perhaps at 5 or 6%. There will be some other goods which will be taxed at 12, some other goods at 18, some at 22. So that is the kind of range that you are looking at. Now the median rate would be 18, and that is what we are talking about. That is the rate which we are looking at. As low as you can bring the median rate, the bigger boost it goes to industry, to creating jobs, and to trade as a whole. And the economy, obviously. Because when we are talking about 2 to 3% growth in GDP, we are not talking about 2 to 3% GDP growth by fixing a rate of 27 or 28%. It cannot happen. It will be a retrograde measure. When you fix something like 16 to 18%, you can hope for a GDP growth of 1 to 1.5, maximum of 2%. The 2% will come actually if you come to somewhere like 12% GST rate, which is possible, which is not impossible. But then the states will have to agree to take not more than 7% as tax, and center would have to agree to something like 5%, which I do not see happening tomorrow. Maybe over the time the GST rate will come down to 12 or perhaps even 8.
Well, there's a talk about a GST council being formed under this bill. What is this GST council? Can you explain us in a layman term?
Well, the GST council will be a council of the state finance minister, the union finance minister and his deputy will also be sitting. The voting shares will not be equal. The union government will have 1/3 of the voting shares, and the other states together, all the other states together will have 2/3 of the voting shares. Now that is because the central government is giving up a lot of its right to tax to this GST council. So therefore it wants its share to be 1/3, which is fair enough. And 2/3 goes to the states. Now this council will have to decide by majority vote with at least 50% of the people being present, what will be the tax structure, on what goods will you impose what kind of taxes, what goods will you allow to get out of the taxation net, what goods will you bring into the taxation net, because there are a lot of new goods which will be added ultimately. Right now they are saying that tobacco and alcohol will be kept out of the GST, as well as petroleum products. Now, tobacco and alcohol are what are called sinful goods. They are not goods which are good for public health. But everybody knows that people take it, consume it, so you can't really put a ban on it. Banning it does not solve it. We have seen that wherever bans have been imposed, more sales actually happen. So you want to put higher taxes on those goods to discourage people from buying those goods. So that is why states will be allowed to continue to impose high taxes on alcohol and tobacco, and it will not be brought within the ambit of the GST. Petroleum products is, however, not a sin good. It is actually a good good. It is something which oils the wheels of production.
Provides lots of revenue.
Lots of revenue, so states are reluctant to give it up. So it will take some time, maybe over the years. Ultimately, you have to give it up. If you do not give it up, we are today one of the highest taxed countries as far as petroleum products are concerned. Petrol and diesel in India are costlier than petrol and diesel in most countries of the world.
Okay, sir. So let's understand GST in a layman term, because there are technicalities which the common man might not understand. GST council, the RNR and everything. How will it affect you and me, the common man on the ground? Like, we know the fact that right now if you go from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, there are lots of hurdles. Tax structure are different of every state. So how will it ease now?
What happens is, supposing let me take a small example. Let me say that a sweater is produced in Jalandhar in Punjab, and then it is, let us say, sold in Calcutta in West Bengal. Now this sweater which has been produced in Jalandhar, there will be a VAT levied on that. After that there will be an excise levied on that sweater. Then after that it will pass through various states where some kind of extra or entry tax or whatever, some levies will be imposed on it. Ultimately it will come to Calcutta, and at the point of sale again a VAT will be imposed, though that VAT is vatable, which means if you have paid a VAT earlier, then that can be set off against this VAT. So, but ultimately you are paying VAT, you are paying excise, you are paying octroi, you are paying entry taxes. So total of it is coming to something like 26 or 27% tax. So a sweater which should cost you 1,000 rupees is actually costing you 1,300 rupees because of this huge number of taxes.
Structure.
So if you reduce those taxes, bring about one single tax. One man pays a tax one place, nobody else pays it, or if he pays the tax earlier, he gets a rebate because of the tax he has paid earlier. So then you have on the 1,000 rupee sweater, you pay a tax of, let us say, 16%, which is 160 rupees. So for the common man, the price of the good comes down. Secondly, for the businessman, his sales can go up because the price of the good is coming down, so therefore there will be a greater demand for his goods. Thirdly, his life becomes simpler. He has to pay only one tax, and that can be set off against previous taxes he may have paid. Supposing to make a sweater, he buys wool. On that he has paid some tax. That can be set up against the final price of the final taxes that he pays on the sweater. Supposing he employs a computer engineer who comes and repairs his computer or sets up his computers in his plant. Now that man, for his fees, you pay a service tax. That service tax can again be set off against the final price of the computer. When I talked about the sweater price being 1,300 rupees, I did not talk about the service tax which is being levied on a number of people and number of services that he is getting. He gets no set off for them. Trucking services from Jalandhar to Calcutta, he pays a service tax of 14% today, no set off for that. Service tax on computer engineers.
So it will simplify the life of the common man.
You make it simpler, the taxes go down, the prices go down, industry gets a boost.
So my last question, will it bring down the inflation also? As you just said, the cost of the product will, in a sense, come down. So it will help.
Manufactured goods inflation will certainly come down if you bring down GST. That has been the worldwide trend. However, commodity goods inflation is something which GST does not control, which means petroleum prices, coal prices, and thirdly, the other thing is food prices. That GST does not control, don't take it into account. But manufactured goods, yes, the prices will be under check.
So all in all, it's a great move for the common man, and of course a great reform measure.
It's a great reform measure which has been in incubation since 2007. Hopefully it will see the light of the day.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for giving those useful insights on GST, and hopefully it will now it will go to Rajya Sabha, and of course the states will also
Absolutely. More than half of the state assemblies have to pass it before it becomes a law.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Well, that was our discussion on GST and how it will impact you and me. And of course, it's going to make the life of the common man simpler. And of course, it will simplify the tax structure in the country. And as the finance minister has said, that it is one of the biggest reform measures in almost many more decades. Well, moving on, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, who is the Information and Broadcasting Minister, will be launching the mobile application of DD News tomorrow. He will be launching the app at 10 a.m. at PIB Conference Hall.
Now the National News Channel of India, live on your mobile phone. Get the news on the go. Watch top videos, get the latest news and continuous news on your mobile phone. Get the power of information at your fingertips.
So now you can check DD News on an app which you can of course download from Play Store. Well, moving on, a real estate bill has been referred to a 21-member select committee of Rajya Sabha. The panel will submit report by last day of the first week of monsoon session. The Real Estate Regulation and Development Bill 2013 aimed at establishing a regulatory authority for the real estate sector was deferred by the Rajya Sabha last week, with opposition members insisting that it be sent to a select committee of the House. The bill seeks to regulate transactions between buyers and promoters of residential real estate projects. It also seeks to establish state-level regulatory authorities called real estate regulatory authorities. Well, moving on, India and France today decided to set up teams to work out details of the acquisition of 36 Rafale fighter jets in flyaway conditions in a time-bound manner. The decision came following the meeting between visiting French Defence Minister and his counterpart Manohar Parrikar. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had last month announced India's intention to buy 36 Rafale fighter jets from France under a government-to-government deal during his trip to the country. French Defence Major Dassault Aviation, manufacturer of Rafale, is likely to enter a joint venture with state-run HAL or any private player to set up a base for augmenting its existing production line in France. The deal is estimated to be over $6 billion and will have about 30 to 50% offset. Well, moving on, while speaking to media on the US-India Strategic Plus relationship, the US ambassador to India emphasized that the bilateral relationship between the two countries is stronger and more vibrant than it has ever been. He also added that the recent visits of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the United States and President Obama to India have re-energized the partnership. The US ambassador expressed concerns on the recent challenges faced by the NGOs operating in India, and also reiterated US stand on the release of 2611 accused Zaki-ur-Rahman Lakwi.
Well, we've already said it, and the Secretary of State has already said it, and he said it very forcefully, that it was a mistake and that the perpetrators of the Mumbai attacks need to be held fully accountable. That's been the U.S. policy. It will continue to be the U.S. policy. And more than that, when the President was here with the Prime Minister, there was an unequivocal joint statement on condemning terrorism globally and to standing up against safe havens and to rooting out this scourge of terrorism. So we're very much on record as being opposed to the Lakwi release. Now, I read with some concern the recent press reports on challenges faced by NGOs operating in India, because a vibrant civil society is so important to both of our democratic traditions. I do worry about the potentially chilling effects of these regulatory steps focused on NGOs.
Well, time for the recap of the main headlines. Lok Sabha passes landmark GST bill. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley assures the opposition that government will compensate loss of revenue to every state. Markets on a free fall. Sensex nosedives more than 700 points below the psychological 27,000 levels. Nifty tanks over 200 points. And real estate bill referred to a 21-member select committee of Rajya Sabha panel to submit report by last day of the first week of monsoon session. Well, that's all in this edition. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.